We are reading chapter 14 of E.L. James's The Misses. And do you know that feeling that you get when you read a phrase or something that you've read before and it just feels like, oh, it's so nice to see you, old friend? Like, for example, I'm reading Kimberly Lemming's That Time I Got Drunk and Saved a Demon, and there's a part in there where the heroine lets out a breath that she didn't know she was holding. And I was like, oh, my old friend, how nice to see you again. I've missed you so. All right, so I have the same kind of feeling, but in a much less positive way about what the very first line of chapter 14 is. And if you hear my stomach grumbling, just ignore it. I don't know what its problem is. I'm giving it coffee. The Thames reflections flicker on the ceiling, taunting me as they've done over the years. Taunting. I don't remember them ever taunting him. But I do, I love the Thames reflections. It's not like with an apostrophe S. It's like as if those reflections are specifically called the Thames reflections. Like that's the name of the reflection. It's not like it's the reflection that belongs to the Thames. Maxim is in bed with Alessia. Alessia is asleep because she is exhausted because they've had sex twice that night. And he was just like an animal because he's got all this fear and stuff. And so he's exhausted her. I'm not making that up. That's literally like the reason that they give, and she's exhausted. And he can't sleep because he's still thinking about this genetic testing that I really hope shows that he is Alessia's brother, so that they have to break up and be miserable. And the rest of the book is just them suffering. However, I don't think that's what it will be. And let's be perfectly honest, this is a writer who came from fanfic circles, and published fanfic writers in general don't have a great track record with decrying incest. So he's freaked out, he can't sleep, he gets up, he thinks about how useless his mother is, literally says the woman is fucking useless. Because she's not calling him back to like ease his mind about this whole genetic testing thing. He thinks that Kit probably told their mother something about the genetic testing because they were really, really close. Sadly, I couldn't find a way to please Rowena when I was young. Dude, move on. Love to get the dude in there. I love it. Remember how Marianne is like a doctor? I'm tempted to call Marianne, but I don't want to worry her. And she mentioned she was on nights this week, so she'll be busy right now. The woman works too hard, considering she doesn't have to. Well, I don't know. Maybe she doesn't want her patients to die. Maybe she works hard, even though she doesn't have to, because she feels some sort of calling to help people. But this is very, very accurate in terms of how rich people think. I truly believe in my heart that this is how rich people think. That if you are working when you don't have to on something so trivial as keeping people alive, great job, E.L. James. You nailed the absolute heartlessness of the 1%. I become more and more convinced with every passing page that E.L. James has become a Sarah J. Maas fan and has been reading Sarah J. Maas and other M- fantasy books. And the reason why is because I don't remember this many M-dashes in 50 Shades of Grey. But on this one page, there are 4 M-dashes, and one of them happens in a sentence that doesn't have just an M-dash. It has an ellipses in it as well. He thinks about them having sex and gets him all aroused, and he thinks he's gonna go back into the bed and do it with her. But then he's like, no, I'll let her sleep. And then he goes back to brooding about this news that he's gotten about the genetic testing. Health-wise, I'm fine. In fact, I've never felt better. But is something awful going to afflict me in later life? Probably. Most people it does. I don't know anybody who stays healthy until the very second they die. As my grandma would say, gotta die from something. Thank God for contraception. Until we find out what's happening, I can't contemplate kids, can I? In between what? When are you going to find out? You're going to find out within like a week. If you're going to have a kid and it's going to show up and like you're going to need answers right now, like just chill out, man. And if you want to like, I don't know, avoid having kids because of this horrible issue, perhaps having sex twice a night isn't a great idea, especially not in an E.L. James book. We have seen before how this is going to go down. She's going to end up getting pregnant, and it will be despite the birth control pills that he wants her to be on. And then he will be furious with her because she got pregnant, and it will be because of this whole genetic whatever reason. But it will never cross his mind to not have sex with his wife to avoid conceiving. This is exactly what happened in 50 Shades of Grey. He didn't want to use condoms. He didn't want to use a barrier method, so he made her get on birth control. Now, granted, in this book, they had a conversation about it. It wasn't just Maxim saying, I don't like condoms, you have to do something. But they have a conversation. She goes on the pill so that he can nut inside her, and now she's gonna get pregnant with this whole genetic, don't tell me this whole genetic illness subplot isn't because it's like a reason for her to get pregnant and for him to be like furious about it and to cause more drama. Oh, why isn't he happy about the baby? Oh, blah, 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 blah. And with the way he's been acting, if he doesn't punch something when he finds out she's pregnant, then I will treat myself to a candy apple. See, I say that because I'm going to do that anyway. I get a candy apple no matter what, because I feel like, A, I'm going to be right, and if I'm not, well, I'll cheer myself up with that candy apple. Okay, he opens his texts. This is what Caroline sent him. You look good, Maxim. You always do. I'm sure this is nothing to worry about. He wasn't worried about how good he looked, Carolyn, and you shouldn't be telling another woman's husband, you know, when you've fucked that husband, how good he looks and how good he always looks. It's not about looks. He's not worried that he's going to get like a facially disfiguring, you know, issue. He's worried that he has a genetic problem that could cause an illness that might kill him or affect his siblings and future children. He doesn't care that you think he's handsome, Caroline. Oh my God. Okay, so he texts her. It's the middle of the fucking night. It's the middle of the fucking night. He texts her, can't sleep, keep thinking about Kit. She texts back right away, me too. So she's been waiting on this text. She's up in the middle of the night too, waiting on this text. Then he says he's sorry for like the way he acted that day, and she's like, where's the Albanian? Where's the Albanian? That's how this woman speaks about your wife. He says, fuck off, Caro. You make that sound offensive. My beloved wife, Alessia, is asleep. Okay, well, first of all, it is offensive that she is calling your wife the Albanian. She knows her name. She knows she has a name. So it is offensive. It's not she's making it sound offensive. She's being offensive. Carolyn's response is, FFS, chill. She's Albanian. Well, if he called you the English woman, if somebody just was like, oh, where's the British bitch, you would probably be thinking, you know, that's offensive. He says goodnight, and she says, Maxim, don't be like that. In spite of the why, it was good seeing you today. I miss you. And then she signs her text with a C and an X. People sign their fucking texts. Also, how the fuck does she miss him? She has seen him every single goddamn day that he's got since he's been back from his honeymoon. Like, she was in his house when he got back from the honeymoon. And then she shows up at his office. And, like, I swear to fucking God, this bitch is around every corner. Like if he goes and if he's like, man, I'm really hungry, and he goes to his kitchen in the nighttime, she's gonna be waiting there with a plate with a sandwich on it. Like, oh, I was just in the neighborhood, and I brought my housekeeper, and she made you this sandwich. Where's the Albanian? After a section break, well, actually, after a long time of just hearing about how much he loves Alessia and him getting into bed with her and, like, how soft she is and it's warm and blah, 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 we go to a section break, and he goes to his doctor's office, and he asks his doctor, my brother, genetic counseling, what do you know? Ah, his bushy grey eyebrows shoot up his forehead. He's taken aback. He leans forward in his chair, and his eyebrows make the return journey as he frowns. Propping his elbows on his desk, he rests his chin on his hands. I can't help you, my lord. What? Your brother, for whatever reason, has decided not to impart information to you, and as his doctor, I cannot breach his privacy. I have a duty of care to him. All right, so your duty of care here, does that include also doing genetic testing on Maxim? Because it is genetic testing. So if Maxim wants to find out if Maxim wants to find out that he has something wrong with him, and if it's the same thing that his brother had, you could just do the test on Maxim. And then once the test comes back, you could be like, hey, there's absolutely no sign that there's anything wrong with you, or hey, there's this thing that's wrong with you. It's not breaching ethics. It's not breaching medical ethics for someone to have their own shit tested, right? So why does he even have to go and go through this whole rigmarole of finding out who told what to his brother or what his brother found out? Because the fucking answer is like in his DNA. Like this is just, he should be going to the doctor and saying, I want genetic testing because someone in my family had genetic testing done and we don't know why, so I need you to check out my blood here. And that's it. That's all it should really take. But instead we have to hear him like argue with the doctor about why he should be telling him about all of his brother's medical records. And it's so goofy. It just keeps going. Your response is unacceptable. My brother is no longer with us. I'm sorry, Maxim, there's nothing I can do. As part of his genetic counseling prior to being tested, your brother will have discussed the implications and whether or not to tell his immediate relatives. But surely, my hands are tied. Okay, but again, he just needs to test the... The doctor asks, do you have any health concerns? This is where Maxim should say, yes, clearly I have health concerns. I am concerned that my brother found out something having to do with my health that would affect me, but he's dead and I can't ask him, can I do the genetic testing too? That's, boom, there we go. No reason that you can't do the genetic testing. Zero reason. And anybody can have genetic testing done. He has a lot of money. He can afford to just have it done. Like, you can just have it done if you want to. You don't have to have a reason. You can just have your fucking shit tested. It's just how it is. He asks the doctor if Kit killed himself because of what he found out from the testing. And the doctor's like, your brother died in a fucking accident. He died in a motorcycle accident, right? And then Maxim's like, oh yeah, he died, so he won't care if you tell me or whatever. And then he's just like, Maxim's like, oh, you have a duty of care to me too. And the doctor's like, yeah, but you're not sick. And then he gets mad and like he leaves. That's it. Nobody even brings up like, hey, you can't see your brother's chart, but if you're worried about this genetic thing affecting you, have genetic testing yourself. That doesn't come up. His doctor doesn't suggest it. None of that comes up. None of it. I have a feeling that the reason it doesn't come up is because it would be like disastrous to the plot that E.L. James wants. And that might not be the case. It might just be a goofy, overlooked thing. But it just to me feels like no one is suggesting this on purpose. Maxim is pissed off because the doctor wouldn't breach patient confidentiality, so he thinks that it's time. This is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. I'm furious at Renton. Perhaps it's time to find someone new, someone a little younger, someone less ethical. Hell. You're really complaining because your doctor is too ethical about privacy, when apparently everybody in the whole fucking world wants to know every detail about you and your private life. You're upset that your doctor, who would have the most private information about you possible, that your doctor is like too ethical. He calls his mom, and this is what he says, because she sends him a text and says that she just touched down and needs sleep and she'll call him later. And this is how this man speaks to his mother. Rowena, call me. This is not a fucking request. Sir, that is your mother. If my adult son, and I have an adult son, if my adult son ever spoke to me like that, he knows not to. He would know not to speak to me that way because I am his mother, right? And I understand, believe me, I understand that there are difficult families out there and people don't always have relationships with like their parents and things like that. And sometimes it's not necessary to give a parent the utmost respect. But what have we seen of his relationship with his mother? It is just full-time. He fucking hates her. I'm also kind of blindsided here in terms of what it is about Rowena that makes her such a bad mother. I'm not saying that she can't just be a bad mother, or we can't just trust that if somebody says their mother's a bad mother, that they're a bad mother, right? But the things that I have seen that make Maxim speak to his mother this way seem to be that she spends a lot of time in America, that she was unhappy in her marriage to his father, that she dates younger men, and that she's really into appearing rich and fancy. I need something a little bit more concrete. And I know people have relationships with their parents that are bad, and we can just believe people. This is a book. We are in his head. You cannot use, sometimes people just, you know, they have their reasons, and we shouldn't just question why someone doesn't speak to their parents and think badly of them. No, I'm thinking badly of him because I am in his head. And the only thing he has ever said through both books about why Rowena is such a terrible person are just things like who she sleeps with and the fact that she goes to America a lot. My mother is driving me insane. Why won't she talk to me? I don't know, maybe because you call her and tell her she has to talk to you and it's not a fucking request and that's your goddamn mother. Maybe because of the way you act towards her. Maybe that's why she doesn't talk to you. I don't know. That's just an observation. It's not a request. There is a section break and he goes to the office where he's looking at properties. He's looking because he needs to buy a house for him and Alessia to live in. They already live in a really, really nice, expensive apartment. And then they have houses all over the place. So I want kids one day. Part of my job is to protect the family's legacy. But if there's something wrong with me, how can I consider having a family? Yet Renton asked me how I was feeling. Maybe that was his coded way of saying I don't have anything to worry about. I don't know, maybe that was his coded way of asking if you were going to die in the parking lot. I just want you to know how many times I edit out things that look like this. Literally just me reading the book, okay? I'm just reading the book, and then suddenly going... Because that is what happens. I go full fucking feral Muppet reading this book. I've not raised the issue of having help with Alessia yet, but it will mean that part of her life will be history. Yeah, you guys have talked about that. I read the book, so you guys have discussed that. I'll always have fond recollections of pink knickers and blue housecoats, but she'll be busy with other things. Music school with any luck. So yeah, once again, he is fondly remembering the time that she used to be his servant. And really, there's no reason for that to be in there. And there's really no reason to bring up the idea of them having staff at this point, because we've already had the conversation about whether or not they would have staff. We know how Alessia feels about it. She loves serving her man. And we know how Maxim feels about it. He loved when she served her man. But it's coming up again as he's looking at things for a new house. It's just like, why does this have to keep coming up? Why do we have to keep hearing about how hot and sexy it is for him that she used to be his housekeeper? And because Maxim has absolutely no, I don't know, intuition with regards to drama and what will cause it, he thinks, well, maybe I should just ask Carolyn to move out of her house and then I'll move into that one and she can move into my apartment. And it's like, baby doll, no, she doesn't want to move into your apartment unless you live there. But he calls her anyway, and she's annoyed because the press is putting him in the paper and everybody's like obsessed with who this guy's wife is. And she says that they need to do some sort of party so that everybody can see who Alessia is and there's no more curiosity. The last thing I want or need is the press digging into our hasty marriage. But I can't let Caro know that. Why can't you let her know that? She already knows that, I assume, because she's already upset that they're trying to dig into it. She seems to be on his side. She's annoyed that they're in the press. She thinks that they need to do something to stop the press interest. She's already on Maxim's side. Caroline is like, oh, hey, if you're going to have this big party to, like, introduce your wife to everybody, I can, you know, be behind it. Like, yeah, that's absolutely... You probably won't do anything to humiliate the Albanian. He asks Carolyn if she's talked to Rowena. She's like, no, and he's like, oh, she's not returning my calls. And Carolyn's like, oh, you know, Rowena's Rowena. And it's like, well, no, maybe Rowena just isn't at her son's beck and call and just doesn't fucking want to call him back when he's treating her that way. Carolyn moves the conversation along past stuff like, you know, hey, the doctor didn't tell him anything, and oh yeah, she doesn't have any of the stuff for the safe, so she can't get in there and look at it. But she suggests, like, hey, let me take Alessia shopping, and she decides to, like, insult her. Maxim, I told you, she dresses like a student. So Carolyn's stepmother, who she refers to as the stepsow and corrects Maxim and wants him to call her the stepsow as well, is a patron of the Royal College of Music, and they're talking about getting Alessia in there. Well, I may need to lean on the stepsow. Carolyn snorts. Good luck with that. I've never known her to be helpful or amenable. I don't know what my father sees in her. Caro is always complaining about her father's wife. You're always complaining about your mother, so I don't know what the... He asks Carolyn if she has attended etiquette lessons, and she was like, yep, you know, Kit insisted that I do it after we got married, and Maxim's like, oh, he's, you know, like, what a snob, like, you know, like, he was, like, his brother's a snob for wanting, but, like, you've thought that it was a good idea, too. Kit is a snob now because he asked his wife to get etiquette lessons. Maxim's been sitting here thinking, yeah, etiquette lessons are probably good. Oh, the light's getting weird. That's because it's daytime. It's daytime! In my dark office with the variable lighting. But if there was a reason for me to dislike the author of this book more, thanks. And to be clear, this is Alessia's idea, not mine. You're so woke, Maxim, Caro grumbles. You're so woke, Maxim. You're so woke. I'm sorry, but if you keep someone in your life who calls woke a pejorative, who acts like woke is a pejorative, cut them loose. They're weirdos. They're creepy, freaky people, but in a bad way. Not like good creepy freaky, like bad creepy freaky. Like radiation poisoning. As opposed to like a spider with cool shoes on. My offer stands. I'd be happy to take her to Harvey Nicks with your credit card, she cackles. And I find myself smiling reluctantly. I'll talk to her. Good. I need to make amends. You're gonna make amends by spending her money on her? I don't know. I don't know. I don't like Carolyn. I've never liked Carolyn. I'm not in... And she just keeps getting worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. And we have spent more time on Maxim's relationship with Carolyn in this chapter than we have on his relationship with his wife. In fact, Alessia has not been conscious yet in this chapter. She kind of half wakes up and mumbles something, and he thinks it's cute. But Alessia has not been on the page conscious in this chapter. We have had two different things where he's talking about her with another woman, but she herself has not made an appearance. Okay, here's the thing I don't understand. Remember earlier in this video when I was saying that we've never heard of something with his parents, or we never really heard the reason why he hates his mother so much? Oliver shows him his mother and father's divorce settlement, and he's reading it and he thinks, the divorce killed my father. He died of a broken heart, and I've never forgiven my mother for his death. I feel like I'm crazy here. Has this been mentioned before? Maybe? I don't know. It just seems like maybe it's just like a convenient, like, oh, this is why he hates his mother. But even then, as an adult, don't you get kind of a different perspective on things? Like when I was little, I hated the fact that my parents weren't together, and I blamed like everybody in the world about it. And now I'm older and I'm like, fucking thank Christ they weren't together. Like, oh my God, can you imagine what a fuck up I would be? Like 10% more fucked up if they had actually been together. Like, so I feel like as an adult, you get a little bit more perspective. And having a heart attack after a divorce, I mean, divorces are stressful, but why is it just his mom's fault that they got divorced? Like, couldn't your dad have been a part of that marriage too? I call my mother and get her voicemail again. Rowena, I'm about to cut off your access to estate funds. Call me. I hang up, then call the bank and have a quick word about my mother with my bank manager. Next, I text Marianne. Please ask your mother to call me. I've left numerous messages, all to no avail. I don't know, because you call your mom and you order her around like she's your fucking servant. Maybe that's why it's to no avail. Somebody needs to slap the fuck out of this guy. I need answers, and I'm stunned my own mother won't do me the courtesy of returning my call. The courtesy! You called her and you swore at her and then you cut her off from her money. And you're like, I can't believe she won't be courteous and return. She sent you a text message and was like, you know, like basically like I've been traveling and I'll give you a call. And now it's like, you're like, you... Good news! There's a section break after which we find out what the fuck Alessia's doing. Yes, she is still a character in the story. Yes. Guess what she's doing. Pause the video, give it a hard think, and guess what Alessia is doing. Alessia has unpacked, cleaned, and put away all the new cookware she and Maxim ordered online from John Lewis. She's cleaned, polished, washed, everything. The place is spotless. She's prepped dinner. After everything is like completely cleaned and she has nothing else to do, she notices Tisha Kavanaugh's business card and thinks about Blariana and like wonders like maybe this lady can help. So she calls her. Now remember how Alessia didn't know the word for truck in the last book? This is what she says because Tisha asks, is it about your husband? And she says, no, it's not. I think, your, acquaintance predates me. She doesn't know truck. She doesn't know the word for truck, but she knows that she can say, oh, your acquaintance predates me. What? I had to stop and change my battery because I raged so much about this book. There's so much of this I'm going to be cutting out because literally I have over an hour of me just complaining about this book. Already, at this point, already. Alessia says, you know, I'm calling because I want to see if we can find the other girls who were trafficked. And she's like, I'm not sure I can help, but like, tell me what you know. Then there's a section break and Alessia is looking at notes that she got from the call. Maxim calls her and tells her, like, I'm giving you this address. It's to this, like, Shane house or something. I don't know how you'd pronounce it. I'm assuming it's Shane. That he wants her to check out. This is the house that he's considering would be a great place for her to not be a housekeeper, I guess. We skip over the whole thing with talking about Blariana or anything. Like, Maxim's quest to get his mother on the phone and to find out about this genetic thing has dominated the whole chapter to the point that we have had several long phone conversations about why he cannot obtain this information. We get to Alessia's POV and Alessia's like subplot of trying to rescue Blariana or Blariana or whatever her name is. And it's like, okay, well, we'll just take a break. And then, oh, she has a lot of notes and she has the number of a private investigator to call. So that's going on. Now let's get back to what Maxim wants. Our potential new home is set back behind the greenery of Chelsea Embankment Gardens, which means, provided Alessia likes this place, I won't have to suffer the watery reflections that occasionally torment me on my bedroom ceiling. Yeah, it's really a fucking cross that you bear, that you have a big, expensive apartment in London right on the river. Like, I honestly, profiles encourage, because I don't know how this man... I don't know how he manages to just like carry on, because sometimes he can see the water shadows of the ceiling and I just feel like he is so brave. Through the shrubbery I catch glimpses of the Thames, Pausing, I breathe in a lungful of air, detecting the muddy tang of the river that's so grounding and familiar. It's home. You just fucking hated it, but it's like the paragraph above it was a watery tormentor. I just need to look out the window. They go back home. There are no paparazzi now, so that part of the story is over, I guess. And then his phone buzzes, and it's his mother finally calling him back. So that whole chapter was just Maxim throwing mantrums all over the place. Just man tantrum here, man tantrum there. At his mother, at his sister-in-law, at his sister. By the way, he's still telling her, we need a bigger house because we're going to have kids. When she's not pregnant, she's on birth control, kids are not in the immediate plan, and now he thinks he's got something genetically wrong with him that he doesn't want to pass on to kids, and he's not sure if he's going to have kids. They're trying to sell this like it's some thrilling love story, that it's just like the most romantic thing you're ever going to read. And what I am reading is that this man is lying to his wife, not telling her, and continuing to tell her that they are going to have kids, not telling her that he knows that he might not be able to. He's just gonna go with it. It'd be nice if the beginning 30% of the book had been 10%. Like if we had not been in Albania for 10 chapters or whatever, maybe it was 7 chapters, I don't remember. But if we had not been in Albania for that long, this book would be so much more tolerable. If it had just been like, okay, we got married, we headed back to the UK, we got married, we had our honeymoon, we headed back to the UK, and then we just immediately jumped in with this stuff about finding the other girls, and oops, there might be a genetic foofy or whatever, then that would be fine. It's dragging on and on and on, and Maxim's getting worse and worse and worse with every chapter. I mean, like, Maxim, in the first book, he was annoying, like, but he wasn't this level. He wasn't calling his mom on the phone and swearing at her, making threats. He was not, he's just turning into like this bully. Like and yeah, okay, he loves Alessia, but even the chapter even starts out with him being like, well, she's exhausted because he was so, like, up in his head about stuff that they had sex twice. So his wife at the beginning of the chapter is described as basically just being a stress ball at this point. Like, that's all she does. She's like a stress ball slash housekeeper slash in-home live music system. And that's the only person that he's really nice to, because she's serving him. That's it. There's no relationship. She's just there offering a service. He needs to be with her because she's not like the people around him. He needs to be with her because, you know, he's so stressed out and he can lose himself in her. Like, yeah, so like, comment, subscribe, tell your friends who also hate bad books about this, and go and check out in the description. There'll be links to other places that you can find me online. And read my work, and you're welcome to read it and be like, you're no better than E.L. James. And I will say, cool, that's fine. And then we will go on our separate ways. But, you know, it is what it is, friends. It is what it is. Catch you on the flip side.